Is 10 weeks in prison all you get if you're a Labour MP who batters one of your constituents in a drunken late-night attack?
Oh, stop it! Stop it!
Mike Amesbury, who is no longer the Labour MP but was at the time, even admitted to being the MP during the assault.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. And you won't threaten the MP ever again, will you?
Oh, is it Mike? Is it Mike?
Yes.
He's the local MP, Jono.
Oh, yeah.
Get him
And
on
you'll never
camera.
threaten me. You'll
Get him
never
on
threaten
camera,
me
Jono. He's the
ever
local
again.
MP.
The MP at Runcorn.
That's what you should be doing round here,
The
isn't
MP
it?
at
The local
Runcorn
MP.
smacks her on.
He's the local MP, Jono.
So, 10 weeks in prison, £200 compensation to the victim, 85 quid court costs and a £154 surcharge. In the last few minutes, it's just come to my attention that apparently Mike Amesbury is going to continue to receive his MP's salary whilst he's in prison. So, there we are. That's something, isn't it? In reality, he'll probably be back out prowling the streets of Runcorn within just 5 weeks or so. But let's have a little look at the judge, shall we? It's Tan Ikram. Now, Mr. Ikram sent a police officer to prison for 20 weeks for making a racist joke in a WhatsApp group and then appeared to brag about it, saying, reportedly, this was a police officer bringing the police service into disrepute, so I gave him a long prison sentence. The police were horrified by that. It's the same judge that let the two women who attended a pro-Palestine protest with pictures of the Hamas paragliders walk free. He said emotions were very high and their lessons had been well learned. Should we compare this to Lucy Connolly, shall we? She's the wife of a Tory councillor who was jailed for 31 months for a social media post, which she actually deleted, calling for mass deportations and saying that migrant hotels should be set on fire. Now, obviously, the bit about migrant hotels is awful, and she should not have said that. But she deleted the post, she did plead guilty, and she still got 31 months. Now, I ask you, what's worse, battering a constituent or a social media post? Now, I put it to you that then Labour MP, Mike Amesbury, what he did was much worse. Mike Amesbury has still not resigned as the local MP, and as I just told you, it looks as though you are still going to be paying his salary even when he's in nick. It's ridiculous, isn't it? At the general election, the Runcorn Rocky, Iron Mike Amesbury, came first with 52.9% of the vote. The man who came second is Reform UK's Jason Moorcroft with 18.1% of the vote. Since then, we've seen the Labour Party embroiled in Lord Ali's donor scandal, cabinet ministers accused of lying on their CV, everyone's energy bills are going up again. Tomorrow, by the way, they go up again. Starmer's reaction to the Southport massacre, more migrant hotels, the economy's in a mess. I could go on. So if there's a by-election, could Reform win? Well, I'm very pleased to be joined now by Reform's candidate at the last election. It is Jason Moorcroft. Mr. Moorcroft, thank you very much for joining us this evening. Great to have you on the show. I suppose the first question is, are you going to be standing at this by-election then?
There's been no decision made yet. So, and the actual election's not been called either. So we'll just wait and see.
Well, would you want to, though?
Of course, yeah. I'm very passionate about the area, Runcorn, Helsby, Frodsham. And nothing would be greater, but it's up to the powers that be.
Yeah, I mean, look, what do you think about this guy's sentence? 10 weeks in prison, probably be back out in 5. What do you make of that?
Well, when I first saw it, I was appalled by it. You know, we've been campaigning to get the streets of Frodsham, Runcorn safer at night, and then for Mr. Amesbury to go and commit assault was bad. So, by his own testimony, I think he said he was wanting stronger sentences. So I'm a little bit surprised that it was only 10 weeks.
And apparently we're still paying his wages whilst he's banged up. I mean, that seems a little bit rum, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does indeed. You know, it's our taxpayers' money, and he's sat in jail, and he's earning a nice coin for doing it.
Do you think that Reform can really win? I mean, I mentioned the share of the vote that you got last time, but I suppose the situation, the political landscape has shifted quite significantly since then. So, you know, would you be expecting to win that by-election? As and when there is one, yeah.
Yeah, well, definitely. We're going to be out to contest it and to win it. We've been out canvassing, I'm always out in the community, and the feedback's been fantastic. So if I was being pessimistic, I would say we're neck and neck. But the running's to be had.
I mean, I just had a little look at the latest opinion polls, really. I mean, you're pretty close up there. The thing that's holding you back, arguably, is that the Tories are on about 14% or 18%, I think it was, of the vote. So you could make the point, I suppose, that the best way to secure, to get Labour out of office is for the Tories to stand aside, Jason.
Oh, yes, yeah. It means we want everyone's vote. We want Labour's vote. We want the Tories' vote. The Tories stand aside or lend us their vote. Fantastic. We want a Reform MP representing the people of Runcorn and Helsby, to push through our values and bring it back to how it used to be.
Just finally, Jason, if you'll let me, I'd like, live now on national television, can you put your hand on the metaphorical copy of the Bible and promise that if you are elected as the local MP, you won't get absolutely battered and beat up a constituent in a late night brawl?
Absolutely not. Violence is not our way.
All right. There you go. Jason, you take care, mate. All the best. Jason Moorcroft.
Thanks, Patrick.
All right.
Good to see you.
Yeah, well, he was the Reform candidate in the last election. You never know. He might be this time. But let's get the thoughts of my panel this evening. We are joined by Daily Express columnist Carol Malone, former Labour Party advisor Paul Richards, and, of course, the ex-chairman of the Tory party, Sir Jake Berry. Carol, 10 weeks in prison for battering a constituent. Is that long enough?
No, it's not. And I'm pretty sure if he hadn't been an MP, he wouldn't have been sent to prison at all by this particular judge. Some of the things that you read out, those other sentences, were way over the top. The 20 weeks for the racist joke is crazy. When you batter someone's head in, like he did, and it was a particularly vicious assault because he didn't just knock him down. When the guy was down, he kept on going at him, which is pretty terrible. But, has he got off lightly in the end in terms of prison? Yeah, because we'd be out in 4 or 5 weeks. Has he got off lightly in terms of his career, in terms of his job, in terms of his reputation? Absolutely not. He's never going to work again in politics after this. Yes, they're going to pay his salary while he's in there, but there's not going to be anything after that. It was a stupid thing to do. And many people say it was out of character for him to do it. A lot of people know him say he's a nice guy, but what it does is it now makes the area and a possible by-election, it makes it very interesting in the sense that you just read out before that, they got 52% something of the vote and Reform was number 2. And I think it will be interesting to see because this is the 16th safest Labour seat in the country. And it'll be very interesting to see if the people look at Amesbury, look at Keir Starmer and what this government has done and decide enough. And if they do, I think it's a really important thing because it will be a very, very strong Labour community saying no.
OK, just before we get to the Labour stuff with you, Paul, I'll ask you, do you think he's got off lightly? 10 weeks there?
Well, I agree with Carol, actually. I think probably if he hadn't been an MP at all, he probably wouldn't have gone to prison. People have fights all the time on a Saturday night after they've been to the pub. I'm not encouraging it, but that's the world we happen to live in. But it's right that he's been sent to prison because members of Parliament, just like police officers you referred to, should be held to a higher standard in terms of their behaviour in public.
I think anyone who batters
than ordinary.
But they don't. That's the reality.
They don't, though, Patrick, do they? They don't. But it's right that he's gone to prison. But just focus back in. Let's think about it. He's going to get between, if he's in for the full 10 weeks, which he could be, who knows? Well, Carol says he won't be, but I think he could behave badly. He could have another fight. He will get £11,000 or £12,000 of taxpayers' cash in salary while he is in prison. If he's got a flat or accommodation in London, that still has to be paid for. So it won't just be that. The taxpayer will be paying tens of thousands of pounds out to this man. And how can he serve his constituents from prison? He's not even allowed a mobile phone. They can't contact him. If this man had any spine or believed in the people of Runcorn or Frodsham or his constituency, he would resign tonight. And also, I appreciate he's no longer a Labour MP. It is for his former party to come out and call for him to resign because it's the right thing to do.
Well, what do you make of this? As we come back to that, his former party should call for him to resign, but also this idea now that Reform are going to be contesting this by-election very, very heavily.
Well, I utterly agree that he should resign. So on behalf of the Labour Party, let me tell your viewers, yes, he should go. It's absolutely beyond the pale. In terms of the by-election, I mean, all bets are off because, as we know, by-elections are, often moments of great drama. And just because the previous election was 50 and whatever, 18%, that doesn't matter at all in this situation because the circumstances have changed, have they not? And I can actually see a Reform victory in this election, because I think that is what happens in these by-elections. Now, whether that seat would stay Reform in the general election, a bit like the Lib Dems used to, pick up these seats as sort of great protest vote, I can see that happening. That's why, and by the way, I think there should be a by-election. I think we need to get on with it.
Well, I think there will be a by-election. The problem is that there's this massive drawn-out process. So this recall petition, which is where local people get together. But it's only 6 weeks. Only after you've exhausted all the appeals. So Mike Amesbury could be appealing this for 6 months, paid. 12 months, getting paid, getting his London flat paid for, getting all his transport paid for.
Do you think he'll do that?
I suspect he will. And the reason I suspect he will is the point you made, Carol, very astutely, is that he'll probably never work in politics again. So he might make a call to say, well, while I've got it so good, I'll keep taking it, which isn't helping the local people. But that might be what he does.
Reputational damage. I mean, he would be spat on for that. I mean, that's a terrible thing to do. If you care at all about the people you've been representing for years, he needs to resign right now, not think about 1 year down the line for him, because he isn't going to work again, but that's his fault. It's nobody else's fault.
As it currently stands, the latest opinion polls there, which was just taken today or the day before, I think, do show that the Tories are splitting the vote, Jake. I mean, shouldn't they stand aside to get Labour out?
The Conservative Party won't stand aside in a major by-election, nor should it be expected to. But I do agree, I think this is probably Reform's to win. In the last Parliament, we saw massive upsets. Nadine Dorries' old constituency fell to the Labour Party with a huge Conservative majority. Selby and Ainsty in Yorkshire fell to the Labour Party with a huge Conservative majority. The Conservative Party don't have to stand aside for Reform to win this. Reform can be the Lib Dem by-election comeback kids of this Parliament.
And governments get kickings in by-elections. That is the tradition in this country, isn't it?
I think the interesting thing is, do you think that if you were a backbench Labour MP, maybe nursing a majority of 2,000 or 3,000 in a seat that you won at the last general election, this is going to have you worried? If the top 20 safest Labour seats in the country goes to Reform, you're going to be worried and questioning what Keir Starmer's doing.
Yeah, I mean, look, and also, obviously, it would be incredible. I was going to ask how damaging you think it would be. Well, it would be quite damaging for Keir Starmer if Reform won that. But, Paul, I'll put this to you. When you look at the likes of, I think it's Lucy Connolly, isn't it, who's in prison for 31 months after pleading guilty for a social media post. Half of it was about burning down migrant hotels, and I've said, that's obviously wrong. You shouldn't do that. She deleted it. 31 months for pleading guilty. You compare that to Mike Amesbury, 10 weeks of physically assaulting a man in the street and battering him when he was on the floor.
Well, the court sort of looked at the evidence. They looked at previous character. They've got sentencing guidelines, and they have to do what the law determines, and that's why the decision was taken. But you can't say that the internet is some sort of ungoverned space and you can do and say whatever you like. If you threaten to burn down a hotel, even if it's only on the internet, that's still a criminal offence, as you've said.
Those same guidelines apply to the copper who got 20 weeks for a racist joke. So why would you get that much for a racist joke?
Well, because the police should be held to a high standard.
But so should MPs.
Indeed, that's why he's going down.
Yeah, for 10
when was the last time a police officer, MP went to prison?
Because if you look at that...
2017, I think, was the last
if you look at that where we are in Britain at the moment, then, so it's deemed to be, literally by this judge, it's deemed to be a worse offence to send a racist joke in a WhatsApp group than it is to punch a man senseless on the streets in the dead of night.
All I can say is thank God for Mike Amesbury that he didn't shout at a police horse or something like that people were sent to prison for months for. I mean, this is a bit ridiculous.
They were not in prison for shouting at police horses, Jake. Come on.
Shouting at a dog and calling a police officer scum. I think that is
and that should be a criminal offence, shouldn't it? That we support our police.
Offense. They went to prison for longer than Mike Amesbury, who literally battered a constituent to the ground and kicked him when he was on the ground. You can see it in the TV footage.
And he's paid a price for that.
He's paid a price of 10 weeks in prison, which will get cut to 5.
And the end of his career.
It's the 12 grand he's paid.
And the end of his career and his ability to earn money and all the rest of it.
But still, 5 weeks in prison.
There's a big price to pay, though, isn't it?
Well, but the thing is, you should have known better than that. You should never have had to pay that.
Well, I think
because you should never have done.
Indeed, and I think it's the demon drink, isn't it? I mean, he was obviously drunk when he did it, and that's
it's interesting because something we're going to come on to in the 10 o'clock hour at the top of that, and I'm really looking forward to that conversation. Is Keir Starmer on record over the weekend? Notice the subtle change in language. It used to be that far-right politics was dangerous. I think many people think far-right politics is dangerous in its purest form, but Keir Starmer talking about now it's right-wing politics that's dangerous. Well, I would argue that a Labour MP at the time battering a constituent on the street is more dangerous than that. But you've also got to look around, haven't you? There's those Labour MPs in a WhatsApp group making racist, homophobic, ageist jokes. And that's pretty bad, isn't it?
Anti-Semitic.
Anti-Semitic.
And being suspended for it, quite rightly.
Right, I'm being suspended for it, but also in Keir Starmer's Britain, you get a knock on the door from the police now if you dare to say online as a middle-aged woman that you think that your local Labour politicians might have to resign. But we're going to talk about this at the 10 p.m. there. So, yeah, I've got loads more coming your way, including